Welcome to Executive Insights. My guest today is Brian Turpin, Chief Information Officer with Greenwin. In this episode, we explore the impact of COVID 19 on the property management industry and what Brian and his senior leadership team are doing to navigate through the challenges and continue to create solutions for affordable housing. Brian shares his vision of anyone, anywhere, and access to everything at the beginning of 2020, how it has unfolded, and what his priorities are for this year. We also discuss Brian's leadership journey and what he considers as top success factors. Hi, Brian. So great to see you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Brian, there's no doubt COVID 19 has posed challenges for the property management industry and the rental market. Some recent research shows a slump in sales and double digit dip in rent. And that's across all major city centers, such as Toronto in 2020. And analysts also predict a surge in supplies resulting from the completion of a record number of new apartment buildings, balancing that with reduced demand. So, given the situation and uncertainties are still looming large in the foreseeable future, I'm wondering, how is Greenwin doing? And from a leadership perspective, what are the key strategies you've implemented to sustain viability of the business while cultivating the human aspect of the brand?
But that is definitely a great question, and thank you. I think for Greenwin, and like any other company, it's definitely challenging times. We're having to adapt in something that most of us probably have never prepared for. So at Greenwin, I'd like to think that we're optimistic. We have a history of being in the affordable housing uh, industry, and I think that sort of mindset or culture has helped us, whether directly or indirectly, deal with something like this pandemic. Our focus has always been on our employees, our tenants, and our clients. Similar to other companies, we've set up COVID response teams, so we still meet on a weekly basis, just as a touch point with all department heads to determine if there's any fires, see where our successes is, and continue to work through this. I think one thing that's come out of this is it's shown the value of the investments that we've made in some of our technologies that might not have been adopted as quickly. Things like online leasing. Our virtual tours was something I did 3 years ago just as a fun project, and now that's become the norm. Electronic payments, digital work orders, it's just shown that our keys to couch process hasn't missed a step, and the value of this technology is proving it in reality right now. On a personal note, it's interesting some of the stats you made, because I read one article and we're seeing record vacancies. Then I read another article and there's 81,000 households on a waiting list for affordable housing. So I think the bigger problem here is affordable housing. I live in a building that's fully occupied, and also my rent went up this year. So I think it's individual pockets of the city, but there's a much larger problem, affordable housing, and that could probably be a whole different call. But I'd like to think at Greenwin, we are trying to be part of the solution.
Good to hear. And you mentioned the role of technology in helping your business weathering through this challenging time. And over the past year, I've had many conversations with senior IT leaders about the role of IT. And as a CIO, you've always been very much focusing on creating a culture of innovation and driving real business impact through technology. I'm wondering, what was your vision for delivering a technology enabled business solution prior to the pandemic? And how did that unfold ever since?
I always laugh at this question because I've had it a couple times, and I've spoken about it before. But in the beginning of my 2020 executive presentation, my theme for the year was going to be anyone, anywhere, access to everything they need. This stemmed from an old idea of not allowing my head office to be a point of failure. Little did I know, in 2.5 months later, we'd actually be putting that plan into action and speeding it up and accelerating it. I'm afraid to bring up my crystal ball this year to make any predictions, so I'm just going to build and keep that one in line. Luckily, we've already been in this kind of cloud first mentality. I support over 330 sites, and then that list continues to grow. So for us, cloud, SaaS applications, all of that has been beneficial to us. We can't build out these massive infrastructures. We need to continue to be lean. Probably similar to every other company out there, we've seen tremendous adoption on our Teams platforms, Zoom, SharePoint. Our existing CRM was already cloud-based, so as long as our users have an internet connection, they're able to function wherever they are. There were a couple projects that would have been really nice to finish or complete before all of this, but we kind of pumped the brakes to see what the pandemic held and made sure everybody was set up from home. And then we continued on our journey of everything that we've set out. One of the things that I've seen that has been a real positive is several departments adopting this idea of digital. We didn't give everybody printers when they went home. So they've adapted and some of them have really like driven this to make all of their processes digital, which is really exciting because we're just here as co-pilots assisting them filling whatever their needs are. But throughout 2020 and now in 2021, and I think continuous, but that idea of anyone, anywhere, access to everything that they need is going to be branded across all of our ideas. And that slide will always be in every single one of my presentations going forward.
That's great to hear. And it's a perfect segue to my next question. I remember when you and I had our conversation recently, you mentioned every year at the beginning of the year, you're so excited and you feel like you're starting from scratch all over again with a blank sheet of paper and lots of new possibilities. So, what's getting on that piece of blank paper this year? And what does the recovery phase look like as far as digital transformation is concerned at Greenwin?
Yeah, I've always used this mindset of the blank sheet of paper. And I don't know if it's whether it's just a way to motivate me, a way to not be complacent, not fall into those traps of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So every year, let's get out, clear out the whiteboard, get that blank sheet of paper and figure out what we're going to do here. And there are overlaps and carryovers from the previous years, I will admit that. But this year, cybersecurity, definitely number one on our list. And that is putting the right processes in place, putting the right governance in place, compliance, the laws are changing around privacy, focus on endpoint protection, network protection, and then number one, the people. Get that cybersecurity awareness training out there, active phishing campaigns. I remember back in October, I sent an email every single day for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I woke up every morning, 7:30, had a different topic every day, and that created this community engagement, which I was really excited about, and I want to continue that throughout the year. I also want to ensure that we're doing the basics right and do the basics really, really well, and that's things like patching, supporting our users, those key pieces. I really want to ensure that we continue those moving forward. One of the things I want to do is continue to embed the IT team within the business. And you're asking, how do we do that working from home? What I've started is having weekly calls with the different departments to ensure that IT remains aligned with everything that we're working on. If there's any new projects that they've thought of, if there's any roadblocks that are happening, we are engaging our community on these virtual platforms and collaboration tools, leveraging things like Planner and Task to create itemized lists and next steps and where are we at with these things, which I've already seen the positive impact for that. A new thing I'm introducing is this idea of the digital mindset and looking at things like our data. And I know we have a lot of data and trying to pull insights out of that. I definitely think there's an opportunity for us to engage in that. We always talked about companies being software companies and then they evolved to technology companies. And now the new theme is every company is a data company. So what are we doing about that? We're looking at um, my crazy ideas of like things like robotic process automation. How can we streamline processes and create automation? We're looking at chatbots uh, and smart technologies, which I could talk for hours, is just, it's exploding right now of all the different things that are coming out. CES just happened, the Consumer Electronics Show, and now I'm seeing things like door handles that automatically clean themselves, elevators that you can control with your iPhone and you don't just using QR codes. And then even another company was doing something very neat with micro vibrations, which is breathing techniques, I think, from the body, if I understood that correctly. And we can do detections on how many people are in a building or in one location. So it's that sheet of paper quickly fills up, and then now I'm flipping it over and writing notes on the back of it. So to your second point on the recovery, what I want to focus on is ensuring that all the good habits and all the positivity that we've been able to create during this pandemic continue to move forward. If and when we come back to the office, I want to ensure that the bad habits that might have been there, or some of the laggards, I want to ensure that we're driving things forward and continuing that digital mindset, digital processes, and continue that adoption and the openness. I'm pretty sure everybody was against work from home, and some of us embraced it, most of us did, and we were able to continue the business. So I want to ensure all the good habits that we've adopted continue as we go forward.
Excellent points, Brian. And I'm so excited for you. In fact, your excitement is so contagious. And I do agree that your paper is getting really full already. So I can't wait to see what happens next. And Brian, you've been with Greenwin for almost 8 years. And, I think that's a record for someone who's technically a millennial. But more importantly, you've racked up two giant promotions in the last 4 years. So I wanted to ask you, what do you consider as key success factors for your own leadership development?
I like that comment about the millennial, because I remember going into meetings and they're like, are you gonna set up the PowerPoint projector? And I'm like, no, I'm actually presenting the meeting. So that's funny that you commented on that. And then
As a
kudos, and
compliment.
yeah, as a I totally take it as a compliment for sure. I look forward to the time when I'm gonna be the oldest person in the room and not the youngest person in the room anymore. Uh, but yeah, I applaud Greenwin for their recognition. For me, it's always about the people, the people, the people. Whether it's our tenants, our users, our clients, those relationships that you build with people make you success. I wouldn't be in the position I would be in right now, or even have this job, if it wasn't for a boss that I knew 10 years ago that kind of out of the blue recommended me to someone that they knew. So all about those relationships, and as leaders, we need to flex to those relationships. Very early, I learned it is all about your audience, knowing how to speak to them, how to adopt to them, and just actively listen to them. And then on the human side, just treat them like humans. It's easy and costs nothing to be nice to someone. Um, 2 points that I want to bring up, and they're on our whiteboard and they always get added to the blank sheet of paper, is focusing on what is the business problem we're trying to solve and what is the value add. Those are the two key factors from my leadership perspective that I think allowed me to be successful. If we're not checking off any of those two boxes when we're looking at a new solution or speaking with another vendor, or someone presents this idea, I think we fall into the trap of following the silver box, or finding solutions that we actually don't even have problems for. So those two key ideas have kept me grounded on my approaches for what I present to the business when the business presents to me. And I think those have been great. And lastly, I want to thank the IT Media Group. You have been with me on this journey since I was an IT director, since I was a VP, and now a CIO. This was one of the groups I first found when I started this position, and the networking opportunities you've created for me, the people I've met at the round tables, even the conversations I have with you. I watch all of your content, and I would love to applaud the IT Media Group for all the work that they do, for individual CIOs allowing us to have interviews like this, and putting us out of our comfort zone, and then along with the topics that you bring to the table, and drive our CIO industry forward. So organizations like yourself and me participating in them definitely add that to my list of success factors.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate your participation and your contribution over the years to our CIO community conversations. I think another important factor for your success, in my mind, is your appetite for learning, driven by your curiosity. And I remember over the years, we've had so many exchanges and conversations about books and reading lists. So, what are you reading? What are the top three books that you would recommend?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I'll never forget being at a round table or one CIO session, and then the presenter was talking about a book, and all the CIOs raised their hands, and I was looking around and be like, I don't know, I haven't read this book, and you guys read? Okay, I need to get on board this, and that stems from that growth mindset of always learning, and from them, I feel like I've trying to always catching up on reading books because I feel like other people are have read so many, and I, like everybody probably admits, I don't think I'm a fast reader. So I definitely dedicate the time to reading. But to address your question, three books right now that I have read and would recommend is The Future is Faster Than You Think by Peter Diamandis. And what's funny is I was introduced to that author by someone I've met at the IT media group. So that book create some neat insight. I've actually read all of his books, but I would definitely add that one to your list. Ride of a Lifetime by Robert Iger, that's the Disney book. Whether you like Disney or not, I think the management pieces that he talks about are fantastic. He brings up lines like leaders don't have to apologize if you have to ask the questions. And what's funny is I was taking a whole bunch of screenshots while I was reading that book and then realized at the end of the book, he wrote out all the leadership points that he made. So even if you don't read that book, definitely read at least the last chapter because the leadership insight is fantastic. And lastly, I just finished Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, and I think his outlook on the world is very interesting. And again, whether you're a fan of his movies or not, I think just him as a person talks a lot about not about happiness, but about joy and finding joy and those sort of ideas and just loving life. So those would be the three right now that if anybody wants to read, those are easy reads and with some great insight.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. I have one of the three books at hand right now. I'm going to put my orders in for the other two books for sure. Thank you so much, Brian, for this great conversation today and for sharing all your thoughts and insights. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you. I appreciate this, and I've always said I'm a big fan of the IT media group, and will continue my participation throughout my journey of my career.
Thank you again, Brian. You've been watching another episode of Executive Insights by the IT Media Group. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please check out other CIO-centric content on our YouTube channel, including roundtable highlights and executive interviews. And don't forget to subscribe.